disaster insurance expert, Scott Mager, a natural disaster insurance expert. Scott, how are you, brother?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay, cool. So let's talk Hurricane Sandy. The U.S. Senate, U.S. House, Congress, $51 billion in Hurricane Sandy aid. And the first disbursements are about to go out. They're going to total $5.4 billion. The first disbursement went out as of yesterday. New York City gets $1.77 billion. New York State, $1.71 billion. New Jersey, $1.82 billion. And the rest gets split by a bunch of states. So the next natural question to ask is where does the money go? Who gets it? How do you prevent fraud? So walk us through it. If your house gets destroyed, tell us, the Congress appropriates all the money, but to the nitty-gritty, what happens next? Go ahead.
Sure. The first thing to understand is that nobody's getting any money right now. They have to formally send documents back to the federal government that explain how they intend to use the money, even though they have some control over it. They then have to produce a processing application procedure, and then that's going to go out to the people, say, in April. And then they'll apply, and then monies can be gotten maybe May and June. How they're going to be distributed will be based on a process that we don't know yet. But the concept behind this is to get the money to the people. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Okay, what if you have private insurance? So when you think of private insurance, you would think that they handle it, yet $51 billion in public money is going. So what's the distinction between what people get from their private insurance or from public money, and public money is for people without insurance, or is it to supplement people whose private insurance don't cover? Walk us through that.
Sure. The first line of attack is always your insurance carriers. Your insurance carriers are your primary source, and if you can receive insurance money, you're probably not going to qualify for any public assistance. If you're unsuccessful with your insurance company, whether that be the homeowner's insurance, the flood insurance, or other types of insurance policies, you will then qualify to apply for these types of loans or grants. Not all grants. There's a lot of loan money out there that they're postulating they're going to give. So you first want to go after your insurance companies in a very aggressive way. Attack them in the sense of making sure you have great expert reports, great estimations, line-by-line estimates, detailed pictures that explain each and every damage, writing letters to them and having them explain in writing why they're not paying each and every item, and if they're not paying it, what is the scientific basis for that. So the people go through and get that insurance side. In terms of this kind of money, for people who maybe didn't get insurance or have insufficient amount of insurance, you'll be able to apply to get monies. Now, the criteria hasn't been released, so you won't know who's going to get what money, but the money's broken up in basically several different ways. It's broken up to give to the cities to use, say, to redevelop their areas and to make their buildings better and to improve, low income and moderate income. And then there's other types of monies which are given to initiatives like to the utility companies and to companies that are going to reinvest in New York. And then some money is going to be given to the individual residents. And I'm going to tell you that it's great that this program is up, but this money is going to be nowhere near enough, as you know, from there being $51 billion that should be in the bank account.
Okay, and Scott, how do you prevent fraud? So, anytime there's a natural disaster, you got all these freaks and hangers-on who try to benefit from public money. How is fraud? I mean, there's so much documentation and complexity with claiming this money. How do they get away, and how is there so much fraud in the system? Tell us about all that angle.
Sure. There is inherent in any system. You're only as good as your infrastructure. If insurance companies, for example, have a system in place and they call it special investigative units that are inside insurance companies that actually serve as a buffer against people that have fraud. In this particular initiative, there isn't any discussion about who are all the people that are going to be involved in any special investigative units and how they are going to buffer against fraud, because you don't know the application process. But when you have government employees, you better make sure that you have extra employees and a lot of allotment for this, or you're going to have exactly what you said. You're going to have problems with fraud, and you're going to have people not going after these people in terms of getting the money back. Because once they get the money and they spend it, the only thing you're going to have is the criminal process. maybe a restitution sometime later. But we want to get the money to the people who really deserve it. And so it's going to be very, very important for New York, New Jersey, and all these other states to have specific qualifications for the money. I've been through 20 of these storms. I've lived through 9 on my own. I'm telling you, there's a way to do this. And most states and most organizations and most companies don't know how to do it. They don't know what qualifications to put in. So because they haven't seen these storms before. Remember, in New York, they haven't gone through 15 hurricanes. So they don't know the typical things.
So, Scott, what do you do? Like, I just get so, nervous. Like, if my house was blown up, I wouldn't even know what to do. So, obviously, you contact your insurance company, but the complexity and how do you know that you're asking for the right stuff? Is there, like, a website? You said, what if you can't afford an attorney? Who do you get to help you? Or are there government advocates that will explain things to you? How does that work?
Sure. There's 2 types of money pools, if you will. One is a government money pool like a FEMA, and one is an insurance pool. And when we talk about the insurance pool, the best thing you can do is to have an advocate, and usually in the form of a lawyer who has experience in disaster claims, not just somebody who says, I can handle your claim. The reason why is there are certain ways, having worked as the top counsel for one of the largest insurance companies in the world on the one hand, and then also participated in thousands of claims against insurance companies, I certainly know and understand that they're looking for certain things. So what you want to do is make sure that you have an advocate that can get you the right experts to write the right reports. There's certain language to use. And when you do estimates, the insurance company uses a certain type of format. Well, you and I would never know that. So if you have a proper advocate, they'll help you to make sure that the estimate is written.
And then so the question is, it's cost-benefit analysis. Is hiring the lawyer worth it so then you get more of the claim money? And you think if you hire the right lawyer, it's worth it? I mean, is that the concept?
Yeah, the reason why I say to hire a lawyer is twofold. Not because, I'm for or against lawyers, but the concept of, first, the lawyer's doing it on a contingency. They're going to have to front these expert witness costs for you. So they have a dog in the fight. They're not just looking for low-hanging fruit. They're going to be fighting. Secondarily, if any insurance company, for example, engages in what is called a baseless denial, then not only will they have to pay all of those monies they owe, but all the attorney's fees. Mm-hmm. So there are mechanisms for people who are savvy and understand the way these statutes work. You can use them in a way that will motivate the insurance companies not to do things that are stupid.
Right. So if you've got an attorney that knows the lay of the land, the insurance company's like, hey, we can't screw with this person. It's in our interest to pay them out even more so than we normally would just to make the attorney go away. So it's like just the act of getting the attorney isn't important. It's like, having an intellectual weapon on your behalf.
There's no doubt. And I'll tell you that having been the chief counsel for one of the largest insurance companies in the world, when we got claims, we looked at who the lawyer was. It's not just, having a big-time lawyer. It's having a lawyer who has experience in this particular area.
Got it.
Because the insurance company's going to know it.
What percentage would a lawyer take, by the way?
They range anywhere between 15 and 30% is the typical average.
Okay. And next, I want to ask you about disasters in Florida, because that's where I grew up. And if you were just joining us, talking to Scott Mager, natural disaster insurance expert, best-selling author about all this stuff. We're talking Hurricane Sandy, $51 billion in aid being released by Congress. What happens next? Where does the money go? How do you claim some of it if you're due it? And how does the government prevent fraud to make sure that freaks don't just start claiming damage and collecting our tax dollars? So I got to ask you in Florida, for instance, and I guess this applies, of course, to New Jersey, New York City, and the Sandy damage. When it comes to flood insurance is a very complicated thing. I learned this as a young child growing up in South Florida. It's very different. It's not so easy to get. And the question also is when your house gets destroyed, it's not as easy to find out what damaged your house. Like, for instance, I know in Florida with hurricanes, what often happens is the wind comes in, it takes out the garage, and then when your garage is gone, the wind gets in the house, and then the pressure differential lifts off the roof. And then when the roof is gone, you can get flood damage not from below with a storm surge, but you can get it from above from rain damage. And so the question is, was your home destroyed by the wind that lifted the roof off or by the rain that actually did the damage? And that's flood insurance. So it's very complicated as to why they blame what for the damage that is done. So you can walk us through that world about flood damage and why flood insurance is different. It's complicated. It's not simple to get. Go ahead.
Sure. You're absolutely right in the analysis that you made. When you talk about flood insurance, there are 2 types of flood insurance. There's flood insurance that's provided by a government or a state program. In other words, the National Flood Insurance Policy that provides the policies for New York, or citizens insurance like in Florida. There are certain groups that will provide certain types of policies. Those flood policies in areas where you can't get other insurance are limited. They're usually $250,000 for your property total, and it's very limited in the way in which you get those funds. And now in the context of regular, flood insurance, you can have a regular flood insurance that has more. It has more, like $500,000, $1 million, whatever the number is. The key to understand is exactly what you said. What caused the problem? Now, sometimes you're going to have multiple causes. That's why it's so critically important that you have engineers involved, and engineers that understand the natural disaster law and understand how to use both of your claims, how to show which events are wind-based, which events are flood-based, so you're maximizing your coverage both on the homeowner side and on the flood side. And that's critical, because what happens in these cases is that the insurance companies say, the flood guy says, oh, it's all wind, and the wind guy says it's all flood. And you have problems that come up and you don't know what to do. Or you think if you get money from the wind that you don't have any claim for flood. And you don't realize that, for example, take windows. You and I would conventionally think that if a window wasn't broken, you didn't throw a rock through it, that it's fine. But people don't realize that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of windows are weak and destroyed. Take a paper clip, bend it 25 times, and then start using it. About 3 weeks from now, it's going to break. Because what happens is with the negative and positive pressures, it weakens the seals. Now, you don't know that, so you don't get your windows fixed. And a year or two from now, you start having this leaking, and you go to your insurance company, and they say, oh, no, it's wear and tear. That's why it is so important to have the right experts in place up front who go through and fly spec your house and look behind the walls and shoot infrared guns and put cameras in your walls and do all these things because they know and they understand what to anticipate. Then you're maximizing, as you said, both the flood insurance and the homeowner's insurance. And because the policies are so complicated, you need a lawyer who understands what they are. Now, public adjusters can also help too, but public adjusters can't file suits.
Interesting. Scott, I got to tell you, your excitement for flood insurance is unlike anything I've ever felt before. It's your passion. It just goes to show you, if you're good at what you do, it doesn't matter what, it can become exciting and cool. And Scott, I'm being serious. What you do is incredibly important because you help people in their worst time of need. And everybody thinks, and I remember, this will never happen to me. That's common because we all, feel when we're younger we're invincible. But I grew up in South Florida and saw people's homes, lives wiped out, Hurricane Andrew, all that type of stuff. And Hurricane Sandy did, horrible damage. And so it's important to get the lawyer, get the experts, and take all of this seriously every step of the way so you get what you deserve from whether that's the insurance or you rebuild your life with government money. Because that's, I'm not a big government guy, but if your life is destroyed, that's where the government is supposed to step in and help you get yourself back on your feet.
You're absolutely right, and I'll tell you one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead. Last thought.
People, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for people to take great steps to get the maximum amount of dollars to rebuild their lives. Look at this. The disaster's over. I can't deal with what happened in history. But what I can do is what I do now. And I tell everyone that it's very important that you detail all your damages, that you get those experts, because you can get a lot more money than you think, and you can force the insurance companies or the government to pay it.
Interesting. Scott, we got to jump, but you should do an infomercial or something. You ever think about that?
Thanks so much.
It's amazing.
I really want to help the people. I really do.
Okay, good. And people can get information. Really, what is it? Storm Help Team. I want to say this again. stormhelpteam.org.
It's a website that has all kinds of resources, everything imaginable, from insurance policies to FEMA to government to everything else.
Cool. And we air in New York City and a bunch of cities around that were affected by Sandy. So that's a good resource. Also, if you go to our guest page on our website, they'll help. It's stormhelpteam.org. Scott, thank you so much, man, and I appreciate what you do. It's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You be well, okay?
All right, brother. Peace. Okay, we're going to take a quick break.